Hey guys, it's me, and today I'm here with a full beat again. It's been a minute, I know. But anyways, today I am here with a video that I have been wanting to do for quite some time now. Also, ignore this nail. I know, it's no longer here. I broke a nail yesterday at work, and I just haven't gotten around to filing the rest of my nails down, so we're just gonna roll with it, okay? Just let me have my booty blasting finger for the time being, okay? Okay. But today I'm here with my favorite music releases of 2021, and this is a really exciting video to be doing because, for one, I have been looking forward to doing this. This is a video that I always look forward to doing because I just love talking about music and music releases in general, but this year in particular was a really strong year for music. There were a lot of amazing releases this year, and it was also just really tricky to get a top 10 down for this year. It was both easy, but it was also quite difficult. And I'm hoping that you guys will enjoy and appreciate this list and whatnot. So let's get ready to hop into this. But before we do that, I need to do my disclaimers before I get into actually doing my typical intro. So the first disclaimer that I want to give you guys is that, hi, hello, I am a metalhead. That is why the title of this video is my favorite metal albums of the year. I mean, we are going to be covering EPs and albums in this video because I'm going to be talking about my top 5 EPs and my top 10 favorite albums, but there are going to be other genres that we're going to touch on very briefly as well. But for the most part, I'd say like 90% of this video is going to be covering metal releases. So if that's not your thing, then that is not your thing. So you're probably not going to find this list to be very interesting. And on a similar note, this leads me to my next disclaimer, and that this is based on my own personal taste. With that being said, you might not agree with some of the releases that I have on my rankings, and then you might agree with some of them. And that ties into the other one, and that is that you might not agree with the placement of some of these releases as well. Some of you might think that a particular release that I have on my ranking should be a bit higher or lower. This is all based on my personal tastes and preferences and the releases that I enjoyed and how I personally felt about them. So this is a very personal type of list. It's all based on my personal tastes, my personal biases, things like that. But now, without further ado, let's go ahead and do my typical intro. And that is, if you guys are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. And also, while you're down there, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up because that'll help me out a lot. All my links are down in the description box below. And yeah, let's get started. Alright, so first things first, let me go ahead and tell you guys how I do my rankings, because I have a system to my rankings. There are 3 tiers that a release can fall into. This goes for both EPs and albums. You have bottom tier, which is a tier that doesn't get any sort of recognition. It is a release that I did not feel thrilled about. There might have been one song off of it that I enjoyed, but that's it. And because of that, it is bottom tier. It doesn't get any recognition whatsoever. Then we have second tier, and second tier are releases that I enjoyed. They had some good songs on there, but overall they didn't wow me the way that the releases that are on the third and final tier, the top tier. And so top tier releases are the releases that I thoroughly enjoyed and had the potential to make it into my rankings, or actually did make it to my rankings. So in a way, I guess you could say there are 4 tiers, because you have top tier and then those stuff that actually made it to the rankings. And so before we dive into talking about my top 5 favorite EPs, I'll go ahead and show you guys the mid-tier EPs that I listened to, which there weren't that many, and we'll go ahead and show you guys those items. And now let's go ahead and dive on into talking about my favorite EPs of 2021. Starting out at number 5, we have the Ghost Sonata from Veile. So Veile is a new band that I discovered this year because they started following me on Twitter, and so I decided to give them a go, and I checked them out, and I really enjoyed the first song that I heard from them, which was their debut single, and that was The Unwelcome. For those of you who don't know about Veile, they are a blackened symphonic metal band, also referred to as horror metal, and I really love their sound. And they are also fronted by Annabelle, whom is now Cradle of Filth's backing singer and keyboardist, and she takes the lead with this project. And listening to this EP before the release of Existence is Futile from Cradle of Filth, I had a lot of expectations for that particular release because I was just like, ooh, Annabelle is a really versatile and just a really dramatic singer and very chaotic singer. I wonder if any of that will translate into Existence is Futile, and it didn't. And I was a bit bummed out about that, but I mean, it's Cradle of Filth. It doesn't need to have a chaotic female singer in a song and whatnot, because you already have Danny being a chaotic singer already. The Unwelcome, like, completely just caught me off guard because it was just something so different. Like, it very much sounds like something like out of a horror film. Like, it's very just like dark and broody, but it's also pretty campy and spooky and just really dark and dramatic and theatrical and just so out there. Like, it just really caught my attention and just really like pulled me in. And again, Annabelle has such an amazing voice. She's a very versatile singer. And again, I hope that maybe one day with a Cradle of Filth release that she's on in the future, that we'll be able to get more of that versatility and chaos, because Homegirl, she goes in. If you're familiar with singers like, say, like Diamanda Gallis or Helena Michelson of Imperia, like if you are familiar with them, even Nina Hagen, like if you are familiar with those particular singers and know just how chaotic and weird and out there they can get with their voices, like that is something that you can expect from her, as well as some growls and screams, which surprised me a lot. And just, she is a chaotic package and I love it. And my two favorite songs off this EP, which there are only but 3 songs off the EP, are A House of Dust and The Unwelcome. Coming up at number 4, we have The Witch from Tulip. Tulip is another band that I discovered this year, and I actually discovered this band because I was searching out symphonic djent bands, because I really wanted to see if there were like other symphonic metal bands out there that have like a very strong djenty sound, because I just find as if that is a little bit tricky to come across them that aren't like deathcore or metalcore bands. Like, I wanted like something that was more so like prog centric and everything, but still had that djenty guitar sound to it. And lo and behold, I discovered Tulip, and I thoroughly enjoyed this band a lot. I mean, they were one of like the artists that I listened to the most on Spotify this year. But then again, I don't really count like the artists that I listen to the most on my Spotify Wrapped each year, because when I'm listening to artists on Spotify, I put on an album and just let the album go and go and go and repeat over and over and over again. When I discovered Tulip earlier this year though, I listened to like their full-length album that they released last year, as well as their debut EP, and I just thoroughly enjoy their music. It's a really good sound, a very strong like djenty prog sound, but there's also a really nice symphonic element to it. It's not like a very theatrical symphonic sound, but it's still a good addition to the sound, and it just helps to further elevate the instrumentals. And this EP, I feel as if they really explored more of that symphonic element, and I really love and appreciate that, because I mean, I'm a sucker for dramatic music, and I feel as if this EP definitely upped the drama. They also experimented with harsh vocals on this EP as well, which I was really excited to hear and to witness with this release. And overall, I'm just really thrilled with this EP. It's a really strong release, and I'm just very pleased with it. At first, like, I was just like listening to like songs individually. Like, there are some songs I was like, oh, this is really good, and like, oh, this is a good song, but it's not my favorite. But listening to the EP as a whole, it works so good together, and it's just a great time to listen to. Yeah, there's still like a release on here that I don't really care for, and I mean, it's the ballad track, but I mean, I don't know, that's just like, I just feel as if like that track just stands out a bit too much, because everything else is so like bombastic and high energy, and then ballad track happens, so it's just like, okay, it just sticks out a bit much, especially in terms of it being an EP. But my two favorite songs off of The Witch are Proxy and The Witch. Coming up at 3rd place is the self-titled debut EP from Dark Horse White Horse. I really enjoyed this release. This was an EP that got released earlier this year. I think it came out, I want to say maybe in March of this year. It came out right at the very beginning of the year, and it's a very solid release. It's so good. For those of you who don't know, this is a progressive, technical, symphonic-ish metal band from the Netherlands fronted by Marcella Bovio, which most of you probably remember her being in Stream of Passion. And I just thoroughly love and enjoy this release. It's really fun hearing Marcella fronting a very aggressive project, because comparing this to Stream of Passion, yeah, they had their heavier songs. This is just a ear assault all the way through. It is just really intense, really aggressive. You hear different sides of Marcella's voice on this EP. She doesn't get very operatic at all, besides doing some backing stuff here and there, and it's just a really interesting release, especially coming from a project of hers, because even with her works with Aryan and especially Mayan, you get a lot of the versatility out of her, and you get to hear all the different colors of her voice. But when it comes to this release here, it seems a bit more focused. It mainly hones in on the more gritty, aggressive side of her voice, which I was hoping that she would bring in some growls and screams with this EP. It's no big deal, because I mean I'm sure in the future she'll probably experiment and allow that side of her vocal tones to shine through in future releases from this particular project, or even with Mayan. So I am really curious as to if that's gonna happen. If so, amazing. If not, again, totally fine, because I know that not every project is gonna warrant a certain singing style. Pre-ordered this guy earlier this year. Did I pre-order this guy? Or did I just order it? I can't remember. It was so long ago at this point. But I got, as you guys can see, I got the signed digipack here. And then I also got the Dark Horse White Horse t-shirt as well, so I'm very happy about that. But my two favorite songs off of Dark Horse White Horse from Dark Horse White Horse are Cursed and Judgment Day, which I do have a reaction video to Judgment Day here on my channel, so if you want to check out that reaction video, definitely do so. Coming up in second place is a very wonderful EP, a Halloween themed EP, in fact, to a degree at least, and that is Halloqveen from Queen Herby. This EP came out of nowhere, and I fucking live for it. It is such a great hip-hop R&B EP with some Halloween spooky themes to it, and it's just so much fun. I mean, I got this signed limited edition copy. I don't know if it's still available. It might still be available, but it's in a digipack format this time around, which I am very happy about, because her full-length album was in a jewel case, and I feel like a lot of people complained about it being a jewel case and whatnot, because it's a jewel case. I know I was a bit odd about it being a jewel case, but I was just whatever, it doesn't matter that much. But I'm so happy that this is in a digipack format, because I prefer digipacks over jewel cases. That's just a me thing, so yeah. But anyways, I love this EP so much. When it first came out, I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And because I mean, I love Queen Herby. I've been a fan of the project since it started back in, what was it, 2017. And so I've been a fan of the project for a very long time. And when I tell you, I was shook to my core listening to this EP. I mean, this EP is so good, because I mean, like I said, it's got some spooky themes to it. I mean, overall, it still has a typical Queen Herby flair to it, but there are these spooky tones to it, whether it be there are certain lyrical themes, or certain bits with the production and everything. Say for instance Stretch Marks. That song just sounds so spooky and creepy, and just something that you would hear in a haunted house, just listening to the instrumentals and the production and whatnot. But I mean the lyrics is about talking about showing your growth as a human being, and showing off where you came from and where you started, and comparing it to where you are now. I just thoroughly enjoy this EP. It's such a fun release to just listen to. I listened to this EP so many times in my car. It's such a good one to listen to when I'm just driving and just like, especially if I'm leaving work and I just need to build my energy back up after having a day at work and everything. It's just like, put this on, drive home, in traffic, have it on blast. I'm having a good time. And my two favorite songs off of Halloqveen are Violence and Bats in the Belfry. So now it's time to move on into the favorite EP of 2021. But before we do that though, I do want to briefly talk about my honorable mentions. And honestly, there's only really one that really falls into this category where I want to actually talk about the release that didn't make it into my top 5, because figuring out which one was going to make it for number 5 and which one wasn't and everything, like which one was number 5 and which one was the number 6, it was so difficult for me to do, and I struggled with it so hard. It was such a hard decision for me. These are like some of the honorable mentions of like the other top tier EPs here, but when it comes to this particular release that I'm going to briefly talk about, it was just so hard to like, if it's gonna make it into 5th place or 6th place, and it did make it into 6th place, but I still want to talk about it and touch on it just very briefly because I just thoroughly enjoyed it. That was Persona from Elios. I really thoroughly enjoyed this EP. It was a great comeback for the band after Justine parting ways with the rest of her bandmates in the past and just fully taking on this project as a solo artist, and it's just an amazing comeback and a really great show of force and everything, and just showing just like what it is that she is capable of on her own and just taking back control of a project that she created. And I just love what she did with this EP. It's absolutely amazing and I just thoroughly enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Sadly, it didn't make it into my top 5, but I still want to just like briefly talk about it because it was so stinking good. But now it is time for my favorite EP of 2021, and that is the split EP of Bestia featuring Ignea and Ersedu. Let me just talk about this EP. It is absolutely brilliant. It is a brilliant EP. I love this EP so much. Like, I didn't expect to love it nearly as much as I do. And it is just absolutely outstanding. I keep coming back to it, particularly like the last half of the EP. Because, I mean, like the Ignea half of the EP is really good. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy it. Because, I mean, I've been a fan of Ignea since, what's that song called? Alga first came out and everything, because I was listening to that song when that video only had been like tens of thousands of views, and that's it. And like, it was long before it hit 100,000 views and long before it hit a couple million views. And their half of the EP is definitely really good. I mean, it's some really good staple Ignea type stuff, but it also experiments with itself as well, which I do appreciate that they like tried out new things and everything. And this EP as a whole just works so well, because if you don't know like the backstory behind this EP, the EP is a bit of a concept EP in a way. It doesn't tell like a particular story, but it does have a particular theme, and that is that all the songs are based off of Ukrainian bits of folklore. I have reaction videos to most of the songs. Actually, almost all the songs I have reaction videos to from this EP. The only one that I don't have a reaction to is the second Ignea song on the EP, so the second song on the EP. That's the only song that I don't have a reaction video for, because I don't think Ignea has put out a video for it yet. Have they? I don't think they have. Second half of this EP, like Mermaids and into the Ersedu half of this EP, is honestly my favorite part of the EP, because I don't know, there's just something about Ersedu that has just like fully pulled me in, and it's just like, this band fucking slaps. Like, I can't remember if it was my reaction video to Black Garden or if it was my reaction to Eaters of the Sun. I can't remember which one it was, but in one of those reaction videos I mentioned that like that song was almost like a blend of like something from like Septic Flesh and Seth's Dreams, and then I wound up learning that Ersedu is the rebranding of Seth's Dreams. Let me just go ahead and put this out here. I have spent the last several months trying to find a way to listen to NC-17 from Set Streams. Months trying to find a way to listen to that album because I've always been wanting to listen to it, but being here in the US, it's really tricky to listen to it in general, even before the rebranding. But after the rebranding, it just disappeared. I couldn't even find like illegal torrents to download it so that way I could listen to it that way. And I was just like, where is this thing? Where is this release? And then one day when I was listening to the Bestia EP on Spotify, I saw some Set Streams tracks that I recognized, like the titles and everything. I'm like, wait a minute. And I pulled it up and I looked over the track list, and then I pulled up the NC-17 album on the Metal Archives, and I'm like, this is the same album. This is the same album. Did they just redo the album, or is this like just like the rebranding and they just like threw Ersedu on top of it instead of like Set Streams? And that's what they did. The fact that I was saying like, oh, this band is like a baby between Septic Flesh and Set Streams. Dude, it is Set Streams, but in a completely different style and everything. Like, it still has like some of like their like core feels to it and everything. It still has that strong symphonic sound, and it also has that experimental nature to it, but it's way more intense, way more beefy. So that's a bit of me talking on that. Let's get back to talking about the Ersedu half of the Bestia EP. Their half of the EP, I don't know what it is about it. I just fucking love it. It is just absolutely brilliant. Like, the production on it is amazing. The songs themselves are amazing. It's just a very solid release, and I just absolutely love it. It's just so strong and powerful and dramatic, and the orchestrations are just everything. I love the brass sections, and it's just so good. Listening to Eaters of the Sun for the first time when I did that reaction video, I was just absolutely blown away. When I listened to the EP, when the EP was finally out and everything, and I listened to Black Garden, I was in complete awe listening to that song because it starts out just so aggressive and just so intense, and then it just drifts into like this very beautiful ambient track, and just that shift in tone was just so unexpected. And the lyrics of that song, like I mentioned this in my reaction video to that song, but the line, "Color me with your poisonous blood," I do not know why, but that line just calls to me so much, and it's just, I just love it so much. It's such an amazing line. It's such an amazing song. And my two favorite songs off of the Bestia EP from Ignea and Ersedu are Mermaids, which is the song that they did together, and then Black Garden from Ersedu. I was about to say from Bestia, no, from Ersedu. So now let's dive on into the albums, my top 10 favorite albums of 2021. So before we get started with those, I do want to quickly show you guys the mid-tier releases that I have on my list. There are quite a lot here, as you guys can see. I do listen to a lot of releases each and every year because I listen to a lot of different projects and I discover a lot of different projects, because there are times where it's just like I hear a couple of singles and I'm like, this is really good stuff, actually let me listen to their album and everything. And sometimes the album winds up proving to be something absolutely amazing, then sometimes it's just like, it was okay. When it came to my top 10 favorite albums of this year, it was really difficult for me to figure out what was going to make it into 10th place, because the releases that came in 11th and 12th place, which I feel like those are like pretty much tied with each other, figuring out which releases are gonna actually make it into 10th place was so difficult. It was so difficult. Like last night I think I spent about maybe like 30 minutes trying to figure out like which one was going to make it into 10th place, because I got my top 8 figured out very quickly, but figuring out like 9th place, but especially 10th place, was so difficult. And speaking of 10th place, let's go ahead and dive on into it and talk about what came in 10th place, and that is The Great Nothing from Nightland. Alright, this is the crazy thing about this release. I discovered this band as of when I'm filming this today. I think I discovered this band and actually listened to this band maybe not even 2 weeks ago. Yeah, this band like creeped into my life out of nowhere because a friend of mine, Michael, he shared them on his Instagram and he was just like, hey, I just discovered this band that's really good, like definitely go check them out. And so I was like, okay, like I heard like the audio in his Instagram story. I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, let me go check them out. And I listened to that song all the way through and I was like, this is really good stuff, let me listen to like the album that this is from, like is that album out? And it turns out that it was. So I'm like, okay, cool, let me listen to this. And I just fell madly in love with it. It is an epic album. It's an epic experience. Like, you need to listen to the album all the way through. There are definitely some songs that you can listen to on their own, but I feel like there are some songs, especially in like the Great Nothing saga, you definitely need to listen to those songs all together. Like, if you listen to them separately, which I mean you can definitely do so, but if you were to listen to them separately, I feel as if like you start missing out on parts of the adventure. So for those of you who might not know about this band, they are a symphonic death metal band. I believe they're from here in the US, and I just really love this release. It's so good. Like, first of all, the cover artwork, stunning, absolutely stunning. I love the colors, I love the aesthetics of the cover art. It's just everything to me. Their production is so solid. Like, it sounds like a very like sci-fi-esque type of album. There aren't really any lyrics available online, or at least as far as I could find. Being The Great Nothing, I can only assume that this is like an album that's highly inspired by like maybe like quantum physics and space in general, because when you listen to like 101 megaparsecs, or even like the Great Nothing saga, it's just like, it just sounds like an epic journey through like space and time. Absolutely wonderful and just so rich with power, and the orchestrations and the production in general is just absolutely amazing. And just it was a release that came out of nowhere for me and instantly wormed its way into my ranking. And so I highly encourage you guys to check them out, because I mean, clearly I am obsessed with this album. And just, yeah. And also their frontman, fine as hell. Oh my god, he is so hot. Okay, moving on into talking about my 3 favorite songs off of The Great Nothing from Nightland. And those 3 songs are, I have to read them because they have long titles. So they are The Great Nothing Part 2, The Reliever, Shade of a Lowering Star, and The Conjunction of Benetash. Coming up at number 9, we have 7 from Enemy Inside. I was actually really shocked that this release turned out to be a top 10 favorite releases from me. I mean, I knew that I loved and thoroughly enjoyed all of the singles that they put out this year, but just because a band has really good singles doesn't mean that the full-length album is going to be something that you absolutely love and enjoy. But it turned out to be the case where it's just like, oh, they not only had like really good singles for this album, but they also had just really good songs in general on this album. This album was just so much fun and just full of so much energy and just a great time. I thoroughly enjoyed this album. And I'm not just saying that because I know the band is aware of the fact that I exist here on YouTube and social media, and like the fact that they know that I have done like reaction videos to pretty much all of the music videos that they put out for 7. Actually, I think I did do reaction videos to all the singles for 7. Yeah, I did. And I'm pretty sure they saw all of them. I think the only one that I'm not sure if they saw or not, I think was for Black Butterfly, I think. But I'm pretty sure they saw all the other reaction videos that I did for 7. And I just love this band. And I know that they are aware of the fact that I thirst madly over Evan. I've talked about my thirst for him, but I mean, I have him as my lock screen on my phone from the Black Butterfly video, so it's just, yeah, I don't know what it is about that man. I just love him so much. He is just so fine. Also, this album threw me for a fucking loop when the final track of the album, which is their cover of Crush, I can't remember who it's by off the top of my head, but they covered that song and it threw me for a fucking loop because I didn't know that it was a cover of a song at all. Like, I thought that like that song was originally done by Maruv because I listened to Maruv's cover of that song earlier in the year and I did a reaction video to the music video that she did for that song. And so I was just like, I'm listening to the song and I'm like, at first I don't really notice that it's that same song. And then like the second verse kicks in because the second verse like is my favorite part of the song and everything. Like, I just love the lines in the second verse so much. It's raising my adrenaline, keep banging on the heart of tin. Please don't think too much of it, baby. That line right there, I don't know what it is about it. I just love that line so much. And I remember like sitting in the passenger seat of my dad's truck on our way home from the store and like listening to the song, like the song is playing and it's my first time listening to it and I hear that line pop up and I was just like, wait, what? Wait, what? It's like, what the fuck? Did they cover a song from Maruv? Wait, what? Or is this like another song that exists that Maruv covered and now also Enemy Inside? Like, what? I was so confused. Enemy Inside's cover of the song, by the way, is true to the original, whereas Maruv took a completely different approach to it. And I will say, like, I love both of these covers for different reasons. Like, I love like Maruv's version because of just how different and sensual it is, but I love Enemy Inside's cover of it because it's just so much fun and high energy and very bombastic and just such a good time. And so it's just like, they're both amazing covers of the same song. My three favorite songs off of 7 are Alien, Black Butterfly, and Black and Gold. Black and Gold is such a good song. Definitely listen to it. I love the chorus. The chorus is so stinking good. Coming up at number 8, we have Crime of Passion from Morte. Was it last year in 2020 or was it in 2019? I can't remember when it was that I discovered this band. I don't even remember how I discovered this band. Also, I can't remember if I discovered them through Instagram or Facebook. It was one of those two, but I discovered them through the song To Get Her. That was the first song that I heard from them, and then I was like, okay, this is good and I'll keep up with this band. And then when they released the song Lace, that was when I was like, okay, this is definitely a band that I need to keep up with because this song is absolutely divine. If you haven't listened to Lace, do yourselves a favor and just listen to it. It's so good. It is a gothic metal dream. Crime of Passion is such a wondrous take on gothic metal because it's very traditional gothic metal while also playing with new things with it as well. Like, it's very fresh but also very refreshing to hear within the gothic metal scene because it's like, oh, this is like giving me like vibes of like the gothic metal bands that came about in like the 90s and the 2000s, like when I feel like gothic metal was in its heyday. Something that's still very different and still very fresh and still is able to set itself apart from that era of the gothic metal scene. And I just thoroughly enjoy it. The gothic literature elements to like their sound and their lyrics is just absolutely amazing. Like, it's wonderfully dark and it's wonderfully beauty and like those blendings together is just amazing. It's just so stinking good and I love it to death. It's such an amazing release, and I remember when it first came out I was just absolutely in awe with this album, and then I didn't listen to it for a while because I mean I'm having to listen to like so many albums and whatnot, but when I went back to listen to like the releases that I remembered that, hey, I remember thoroughly enjoying this, or I don't remember this album that well but I know I really liked it, let me listen to it again. This was one of the ones I was like, okay, I know I really love this album, let me listen to it again so that way I can figure out if it's going to make it to a top 10 or if it's not. And like all of the feelings that I had when I was listening to it during that period of time when it first came out just came back, and I was just like, this is such a good album. This is such a wonderful album. Yeah, it's a female-fronted gothic metal band, and yeah, there's a song on there that features a male singer, but that particular song that features that male singer, like, he gets close to doing growls without actually going, like, full-blown, like, death growls and everything. And then their female singer isn't a opera singer at all, but she still has, like, this, like, classic way of singing to her voice though. So it's just, it, like I said, it's like traditional while still being something completely different and completely fresh for the scene. And I just, oh, it's so good. And my 3 favorite songs off of Crime of Passion are To Get Her, If Only You Knew, and my favorite song being Lace. Coming up at number 7, we have Don't You Feel Amazing by Trash Boat. This is another band that I discovered this year that I wound up just really falling in love with. Their earlier stuff isn't really my thing because it's very much like very pop punk and whatnot. But this album though, this album is so good. It's so good because it's very aggressive. And how I learned about this band was when I was doing research for the compilation video that I posted in the month of June, which was for 15 metal bands with LGBT members, which if you haven't seen that, go check it out. Trash Boat's lead singer, he is bisexual, and I learned about him by like doing some digging online, and I was just like, okay, cool, let me check them out and everything. And I first listened to He's So Good, and then after that I listened to Don't You Feel Amazing. And when I listened to Don't You Feel Amazing, I was like, fuck yeah, I am on board with this. I need to listen to more from this band. I need to listen to this album when it comes out. And I did listen to it when it came out, and I was obsessed with this album. It's just so much fun to just put on and listen to just like pump you up, get you into like a good mood and whatnot, and to also to drive to. It's wonderful to drive to. Yeah, there are definitely some like angsty pop punk-esque type of songs on here and like butt rock-esque type of songs on here, but the thing is though is that the production and the writing on everything makes it worth it because it's a good time. It's like full of so much energy and just ooh, it's so good. It's so good. And I feel as if like when you listen to like the older stuff before their frontman came out and then you listen to this, it's like this is like angry bisexual energy, and I fucking live for it. Especially when you watch like the music videos as well for the songs for Don't You Feel Amazing. It's just like you definitely can see like, oh, this is like the workings of like queer people and like queer artists and whatnot. Like now that he's out and everything, it's like it's time to start bringing in that queer energy and whatnot, because like, yeah, it's in the music video for He's So Good, but when you watch the music video for Don't You Feel Amazing, that is just like a queer wet dream in a metal video, and I fucking live for it. Like I said, this album has angst to it. It's got power. It's got beef. It's got some like punk to it. It's got like a bit of pop punk to it. Those particular bits I'm not the biggest fan of, but there are still some songs that fall into that vein where I'm just like, no, I actually really dig that. But overall though, this is like a very much like punk hard rock type of album, and I just really love it, and just it's such a good release. My 3 favorite songs off of Don't You Feel Amazing are Cannibal, Love Without Needing, and my favorite song being Don't You Feel Amazing. Cause again, angry bisexual energy, and that fucking music video, oh my god, Toby is so hot. Coming up at number 6, we have Жива и залізна from the Hardkiss. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't speak Ukrainian. We are very well aware of this. This album, love it. It's so good. It's so good. I feel as if like this is gonna be like the only Hardkiss album where they're gonna have like a music video for every single song off the album, because they just released a music video for Sestra, which I did a reaction video to that it should be coming out soon. It was not out yet. It'll be coming out after this video. This band has put out like, of all the 10 songs off this album, 8 of them have music videos, because 6 of the songs that are on this album were released as singles before this album even came out. And shortly after this album came out, Simvitriv had a music video come out, and then now Sestra just got a video out as well, and I just I just love this album. It's so good. It's so fun. I mean, I've mentioned this before. The Hardkiss, they're one of my absolute favorite bands. I just thoroughly enjoy this band. They just bring me so much joy and they're just such a fun band. And I've also talked about this before as well, but I just love the fact that they have started going in a more rock direction and more of like a prog rock direction specifically, I should say. And I just love it because I mean, in the early days they were progressive pop rock, but now it's just in like progressive rock and borderline metal, and it's just so good. And just I love them so much, and their music videos are so good. I feel as if like they like went through a period of time where their music videos weren't that interesting, but now they're having like a renaissance again with their music videos, and they're becoming like exciting and very visual again, and I'm super excited about it. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy with this band, and I just love them so much. And I've talked about this in all of my reaction videos to the Hardkiss, but I know that my chances of being able to see them live are extremely slim, but I would love to see this band live at some point in time because I mean, like I said, they're one of my favorites, and I love them to death. And I've been a huge fan of theirs for many years because I discovered them back in like what, 2013, 2014 was when Strange Moves came out, their collaboration with Kazaki. I need to get some physical copies of their releases because I need them in my life. This entire album is just full of so many songs that just make you just feel so good. Like there are some like really like darker songs, like the opening track Jiva, which I love so much, and then you have like fun songs like Cobra featuring, is it Monatic? I still don't know how you pronounce his name. And Hora is a bit of like a darker song as well, but it still has like a funness to it. And then like you just have like these really like deep emotive songs like Sestra, Sabulotak, and especially Obimli, and it's just I just love it so much. I love this album so much, and it's just the production, the lyrics, the writing, everything is just so good. And my three favorite songs off this album are Sabulotak, Obimli, and my favorite being Shiva. Coming up at number 5, we have an album that's probably going to be a little bit controversial for some people. It is Omega from Epica. I know, one of my absolute favorite bands, and like top 3 favorite bands of all time, is coming in at 5th place. I mean, same thing could be said for Hardkiss. I mean, they're within like my top 5 as well. And it's just simply because Omega is my favorite release from them. Is it a bad album? Absolutely not. I thoroughly enjoy this. Apparently, like this year, I listened to this album the most on Spotify out of all the releases I listened to this year. So when I take it as a whole in that aspect, and then to like the other releases that I listened to this year, this one just didn't make it for me. First few times I listened to it, I was just like, this doesn't seem like an Epica album, but as time went by and I listened to like previous releases and then compared it to this one, I was like, okay, this does still feel like an Epica album. It's still very different, but it's still very much an Epica album at its core. And I think one of the things that like kind of like worried me about this particular album is the fact that it is a bit more power metal-y. I mean, I have always have read like articles and like interviews and whatnot centered around like Epica in the past, and everyone had always described them to be a power metal band. But back then I was always just like, they're not a power metal band. What are you talking about? They're like a proggy, deathy, symphonic metal band and everything. Like, they're not power metal. And then after listening to this album, I'm like, oh, they're power metal. But then I started remembering like back to like one of the articles that I read, and that is just like Epica is a power metal band for people that aren't fans of power metal, and that is a statement that I fully agree with. But enough of me like talking about like explaining like why Omega didn't make it very high on my rankings for me. Let me just start talking about the things that I love about this album. I love that this album has maintained like this big sound that Epica has created since the Quantum Enigma. Actually, better yet, that they really started to like create during the holographic principle. They really created this really big and grand sound, and I was very happy and very pleased to note that they were able to maintain that grand sound with this particular album as well, because it's again an amazing release. It's full of so much power and just so much energy behind it, And I feel as if like this was like a release that was kind of necessary for this year. I mean, if you were to go back and listen to all of Epica's previous releases and compare this album to all those releases, this one has so much light in it. And with 2020 being such a tumultuous year, and even now with 2021, it's still a rough year because of the pandemic Lovato. So it's just like, this was definitely an album that was like necessary. Because I mean, yeah, there are some songs that have like dark undertones to them and whatnot, but this album in general though is just full of so much light and just so much peace. And it's just a beautiful album. And I feel as if like if we would have gotten like an album like that we are very familiar with from Epica this year, it probably would have continued like this route of just like another like album with like dark serious undertones in a world where we are just completely driven by dark serious undertones, because that is the intensity of the world that we are living in presently. Also, another reason why this album didn't place possibly higher than 5th place is because there is a song on this album that I don't really like, and that is Freedom. I do not like that song. That song is so boring. It is such a boring song. I am sorry. It is. I don't like it. It had a cool ass music video, but the song itself just doesn't really do much for me at all. I always skip it, so it's not for me, man. But my 3 favorite songs off of Omega are Rivers, Twilight Reverie, and my favorite song is Code of Life. That song's so good. I feel as if it's massively slept on. You need to listen to it. It's, in my opinion, the strongest song off the album, and I just wish that the chorus was much longer than it actually is, because the chorus is just full of so much power and energy. I did have a vocal cover up of that song for a period of time, but I don't know, people weren't responding to it that well, and then to me, I was overthinking it a lot and everything, so I was just like, you know what, we're gonna take this down. I'll approach it later on in the future again and like have like another stab at it later. But yeah, love that song so much. It's so stinking good. It is absolutely amazing. Coming up at number 4 is The Last Horizon from Imperia. This album I was so excited for because I am a big Imperia fan. Flames of Eternity, although it did make 4th place in my top 10 rankings for, what was it, 2019, like as time went by and I like listened to it now and everything, isn't necessarily my favorite release now. No. It's still a good Imperia album, but it's definitely not my favorite as a whole. This album though, I am just over the moon about. There are a few songs on this album that I'm like, okay, not really my thing, but I still enjoyed the album though. It's still just absolutely stunning and amazing and just so good. Like I feel as if like this album is like a good representation of just like old school Imperia and new school Imperia, because Helena, she brought back those witchy vocals that I just love so much and that I have been missing since Tears of Silence, and it's just, oh god, I love it. I love it so much. And I'm just so glad that she brought that style back with this album. Yeah, it's only present but on, I think, but like 2 songs on the album. But still, she brought it back. She brought it back, and I'm so happy about it. She brought that chaos back with this album. And not only that, but she brought chaos still with this album, because again, she's bringing in like the growls and screams on this album like she did with Flames of Eternity, and I feel as if like they played a much bigger role with this release here than they did on Flames of Eternity. Cover artwork. Can we talk about how stunning this cover artwork is? It's so good. Something that I just love about this album though is that I feel as if like this is such a very powerful album and just something that's just like very deep and personal for her. I know Helena, she tends to like it like really deep, raw, and personal when it comes to her solo project Angel, but I feel like with this album, I think she really just like dug into her soul a little bit and just brought out more of herself with this release, and I love it so much, because I mean like there are definitely some songs on here that I feel as if like she definitely wrote like for her daughter, like especially like if you're to listen to I Send You My Love, which is such a stunning song off this album. I love it so much. It's my second favorite song off of the album, and it's such a beautiful song to close the album to, and it's so different, and it's like almost like a reference to like the more like synthy stuff that they did on Secret Passion. This album is just full of so much beauty and power and drama and emotion, and I just love it so much. My 3 favorite songs off this album are While I'm Still Here, I Send You My Love, and Blindfolded. Blindfolded is dramatic, powerful, and sensual, and it's absolutely epic and amazing and very intense. Just absolutely amazing. Do yourselves a favor and listen to it. It's so good. Same thing goes for I Send You My Love. Listen to it. It's beautiful. It'll make your heart very, very warm and happy. Coming up at number 3 is an album that I did not expect to be on my top 10 rankings, period. I initially thought that it might wind up being just like a mid-tier album for me, but no, it not only became a top-tier album, but it made it into the top 3, and that is In Nomine Sanguinis from Théâtre des Vampires. I love this album so much. Oh my god, this album is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I was listening to it non-stop when it came out because I was just so hyped for it, because when Death in Venice came out, I was like, okay, cool, new Théâtre des Vampires song is out, let me listen to it. And I fell in love with it instantly because I'm like, oh my god, this sounds like old school TDV. This is so cool. This is so good and everything. And then they released a music video for, what's that song? It's not Cassandra, Christina. They released a music video for Christina, which I did a reaction video to. And again, reminded me so much of like their older stuff, but with like a new school flair to it. And I'm just like, this is so good. I'm so hyped for this new album. And like, I kept on like forgetting like when it was supposed to come out, because I think it came out on the 15th of November, I think it was when it came out, and I kept on thinking like, oh, it's gonna be coming out today. Wait, it's not coming out today, it's coming out next week. Oh, I was just so excited about this album, and when it finally came out and I finally listened to it, I was so scared that I was like hyping it up too much and that it was gonna let me down. But no, like me hyping it up did nothing for just how epic and wonderful this album. This is a gothic metal masterpiece, like old school Théâtre des Vampires with a new school flair to it. I mean, hell, they redid one of their old songs when Lord Vampire was still in the band, and Théâtre des Vampires was very much a borderline black metal band back in the early days, like from like the 90s into the very, very early 2000s. They redid The Last Drop of Blood, and it's just epic and amazing and just so powerful, and just it has like the production behind it to make that song like as epic and intense as it truly is. I mean, yeah, Lord Vampire isn't on it and everything, and it's just Sonia singing, but still, it's so good. It is so good. This is like their darkest and heaviest album that they have released in years. It is amazing, absolutely amazing. And I know people are going to be sleeping on this album, because after like Candyland, I feel as if like some people kind of dropped them a bit, because it was just like the only song from Candyland that was honestly like extremely good was Morgana Effect, and that was the first song off that album and also the first single that they released. Don't get me wrong, Candyland is it's an album. It's an okay album, but compared to like what they've done and everything, it's not their best work in the slightest. But going from that and having In Nomine Sanguinis follow it is just like, okay, you're back in the game. Okay, I see you. Do yourselves a favor and listen to it. Especially my top 3 favorite songs off the album, which are Lady Bathory, Golden Cage, and the title track In Nomine Sanguinis. Now it's time for album number 2, and that is The Cause of Shipwreck from Blackbriar. Now, before my favorite album of the year came out, because my favorite album of the year came out after The Cause of Shipwreck came out, this was looking to be my album of the year this year, because this album is just stunning. It's absolutely magical. Like, I've been a fan of Blackbriar for years because I discovered them through, what is that song called? It's called In Another Life? Beyond Eternity? I can't remember what it's called. Like, y'all know what song it is that I'm talking about. It's like their first single that they pretty much ever put out. Like, or at least their first big single that they ever put out. Like, that song there, that's the song that I learned about them through. Seeing like them go from like that to where they are now is just amazing to see. Like, the growth is just monumental. Like, and especially, and I talk about this all the time when it comes to their reaction videos that I do for them, but ever since Joost van den Broek became their producer, their sound has just become so much more elevated and so much stronger, and you can really hear that on this album. Are there definitely some songs that sound a bit similar to one another on this album? Yes, but I can look past it though, because the storytelling and the writing and the production on this is just stunning. It's perfection. It's so brilliantly dark and beautiful and just outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. The music videos that they released for this album are wonderful. The songs on this album, again, wonderful. Like, yeah, I don't really like Haunting Me that much, but still, like, when you listen to the album as a whole though, like, it plays such an important role in like the track list and everything, and just the flow of the album, and it just works so well. Like, I don't skip it. Even though it's not really a song that I care for that much off the album, I don't ever skip it. That's how you know it's still good. That's how you know it's still really good. It's not a Freedom by Epica that I always skip. It's one that I still listen to even though I don't care for it as much as the other songs on the album. And let me tell you this, choosing a top 3 favorite songs for this album was so difficult, because it was just like, oh, for like number 3, it's just like, oh, I really loved like this song here. And then I got to thinking like, oh, wait, I think I like this song a bit more though. Yeah, I'm gonna do the song instead. But should I do that song instead? I don't know. And so I just stuck with my gut, and I was just like, we're gonna stick with the song, and we're just gonna stay here and stick with it, because again, amazing song. And just like the tone of the album, and just like the fact that I feel as if like they played with like new things with this release as well. Like, because I mean, like, if you're to listen to Deadly Diminuendo, like Zora, like the opening, like she just brings out like this wailing and everything, or like some sort of like folk singing cry thingy. Like, I don't know how you could describe it, but like she breaks that out, and it's just like, oh wow, I've never heard that from her before. Okay, that's cool. And then when you listen to like the bridge of Lilith Be Gone, where she just goes absolutely batshit insane with like singing Lilith over and over and over and over and over again. It's just like, what in the absolute fuck is happening? I don't know what it is, but I'm fucking here for it, bitch. The raw power and emotion behind My Down to Earth Lover, and just how beautiful it is, and just how emotive it is. It's just, oh, I love this album. It's so good. It is so fucking good. Because like I mentioned, there was a very long period of time where this was looking to be my album of the year. Like, I think this was like looking to be my album of the year for about maybe like 3 months, I think. My 3 favorite songs off of the Cause of Shipwreck are My Down to Earth Lover, Deadly Diminuendo, and Lilith Be Gone. And now it is time to talk about the many honorable mentions of these many top tier albums that I had checked out and everything for this year. Like, these were all albums that could potentially have made it into my top 10 favorite releases of the year. And I do have several like honorable mentions that I do want to touch on. Like, one of them is like a top tier album for me, and like it wasn't gonna make it into my top 10 rankings, but I do want to touch on it just very briefly, and that is Wallflowers from Ginger. I mentioned this a few times in reaction videos that I've done for like songs off of the album that I really enjoyed this album. It's a really solid album. It's just that it didn't do enough to make it to my top 10. I just really love it. It's a great time. I loved listening to it. I still put it on from time to time, and I just thoroughly enjoy it. It just didn't do enough to make it to my top 10. Then another album that didn't make it into like the top 10 or even like potentially make it to the top 10 that I do want to touch on is Eternal Blue from Spirit Box, which I got the CD copy of it. I am considering getting a vinyl copy of it because I think having a vinyl copy of it would be really fun and just really pretty to have. But I don't know if I'm going to get one though. I'm just going to wait it out. I really wanted to get a vinyl copy of the singles collection when that got re-released and everything, but it sold out so quickly. It sold out so quickly because when I got the email saying that it had launched, I was still at work, and about 2 hours later after I got home from work, it had already sold out. And I was so mad about it because I was just like, when I saw the email, I was on my break and I was like, oh, I'll just order it when I get home. And I get home and it's gone. And I was so mad. I was so mad about it because the singles collection was my favorite EP of, was it 2020 or 2019? I can't remember which year it was when the singles collection came out, but it was my favorite EP of that particular year. And I was so mad that I missed out on it. And also, I do want to briefly touch on Omega Live. The reason why this isn't on my rankings is because of the fact that it's a live release and everything. When it comes to live releases or even like re-releases, I don't count them in my rankings and whatnot. I also still haven't watched this yet, so yeah, I just got this in the mail yesterday. I can't wait to watch it. I don't know when I'm actually gonna watch it because I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to watch it after I'm done filming, because I'm gonna be leaving at around like 5 o'clock and it's just shortly, it's nearly 1:30. And then we have like the two albums that were fighting over if they were actually going to make it onto the top 10, and one of those albums I have a physical copy of, and that is A Woman from Queen Herby. This album is such a fun release and it's just really good. It's just that my issue with it is that I feel as if it starts out really strong for me and then it kind of like trails off a little bit in a way. Like, does it get bad through the latter half of the album? No. It's just, like I said, it trails off a bit for me. If I'm looking at it as a whole, like, because of that, I couldn't just let it be on my top 10 favorite albums of the year. But I still really do love this album though. Like, Balenciaga Dreams is just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Then the other album that potentially could have made it into my top 10 favorite releases of 2021 was Existence is Futile from Cradle of Filth. I, again, really love the album. It's just that I feel as if that there are a lot of songs that I thought performed exceptionally well and just were absolutely amazing. Necromantic Fantasies, that is definitely hands down my favorite song off the album, but I feel as if that there were also a lot of songs, well, I say a lot of songs, there are also quite a few songs off the album that just didn't do enough for me. And so because of that, I just couldn't allow myself to put it on my top 10. And so without further ado, let's talk about my favorite album of 2021. And that is this guy. Yes, Tales from 6 Feet Under by Charlotte Wessels. I mean, should it come as any surprise? I mean, she's my biggest inspiration of life. How am I not supposed to let her be my top release of 2021? I mean, it's kind of how like last year Apocalypse and Chill was my favorite album of the year because, again, my biggest inspiration in life, my queen, my legend, my icon. I'm so happy that my first vinyl that I ever purchased was this guy. I'm just so happy with it. Was it definitely a risky decision considering that there had only been but like, what was it, like 2 or 3 singles that have come out when this pre-order went up? Absolutely. But did I really care? No, because I knew I was going to love it either which way. Shortly after this album came out was when my uncle passed. And this album, right from when I started listening to it, I was like, this is a comfort album for me. Because a lot of the songs on here are just very comforting, very nurturing, and just very much like the types of songs that you listen to when you're going through some shit. Throughout that whole ordeal with like my uncle passing and everything, like there are several songs off of here that brought me comfort. There's also like, I found myself listening to this album through like some other things that have been going on in my life and everything, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but there are some things happening in my life that were very trying for me emotionally. That's was going down recently and everything, and there were songs on this album that brought me comfort and brought me ease and everything, and just like this album just means so much to me, more than just the fact that like Charlotte is like everything to me. I'm so thrilled and happy to have it. I wish that I could put it on a record player, but our record player is broken, so I definitely need to get a new record player, and so that way I can actually spin this guy and whatnot, because I want to give it a go, especially since I learned like the other day that some of the vinyls people have reported having issues with, so I'm a little bit worried that I might have one of the faulty ones, but at the same time there's just no telling. But if you're curious, I got the orange marble one, if you're curious as to which one I got. Oh, I didn't even know that this was in here. Oh, I didn't even know that this was in here. I did my unboxing. I've had this sucker for like nearly 3 months now, and I didn't even know that this poster was in here. It has like the lyrics on it. Oh my god, I didn't even notice this. Oh my god. I'm telling you guys, I'm an oblivious as all hell person. I am so sorry. This album just means so much to me. If you haven't listened to this album, do yourselves a favor and listen to it. It's like prog rock, experimental, very like 90s-esque type of music, and I just love it so much. It's, again, like I said, a comfort album. A lot of the songs on here are just like very comforting and very empowering and just feel good type of songs. And my 3 favorite songs off this album are Source of the Flame, New Mythology, and Superhuman. We are finally at the end of this video. Those are my top 10 favorite albums of the year and my top 5 favorite EPs of the year. What did you guys think? Were any of these releases on your rankings this year? Did you learn about some new artists through this video? Were you familiar with some of these artists in this video? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be curious to know what all releases you were all very into this year and what made it into your like your top 10s and your top 5s, what have you. Let me know all those things down in the comments below, because I'm always down to check out more music and whatnot. So yeah, be sure to let me know those things down in the comments below. And yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until I see you guys in my next one, whenever the hell that may be, goodbye.